liabilities. And those responsible include the banking system, which has a portion to pay, as well as central bank and other stakeholders. As for government being government being in a position to borrow, as I had said, government is not in a position to borrow if you consider 90% debt service to revenue. And behind that, a rising debt to GDP ratio. But you cannot turn off the lights and go home. You have to continue. So the emphasis, and of course, if you look at the last budget, you will see that there's a borrowing requirement built into it, appropriated by the National Assembly, and that is ongoing. So it is an indication of the commitment of government to find other sources of funding rather than relying on borrowing, and to bring down and even eliminate a certain type of borrowing as soon as possible. And that type of borrowing is borrowing for recurrent, as opposed to borrowing for capital expenditure, which has a return and which is self-financing. And the ways out, as was also mentioned, is to bring in others other than government by creating room for those who want to invest, foreign direct investors, domestic investors, by giving them access to, for example, airwaves, spectrum, land, facilities, so that they can invest, perhaps alongside government, in private-public partnerships, where government not only does not invest, but in fact, it gets a return for moving aside and creating room for private investment. There is the private sector now runs airports, refineries, and all manner of revenue-generating activity. And the commitment must be, and I know that it is to provide the enabling environment for the private sector to lead. And as you saw from the captains of industry that have commented on what has been done so far, the measures that Mr. President has taken so far, bold, courageous, decisive measures in terms of the key issues of the economy. They have been well received, and as that trend continues, investment will follow. So therein lies the road to less reliance on borrowing. And of course, we do have the God-given asset of petroleum and gas. And with better security, as those revenues recover, that automatically means less reliance. It gives you scope for less reliance on borrowing. The states and their budget support, that is something that one would have to look at specifically in order to be able to respond whether they are paying or they are not paying back. Hopefully they are paying back. I think there was a question for the chairman of the tax committee, which he may come up at some point to answer. But in terms of leakages and greater efficiency, there has to be a move to greater efficiency with government's finances, both on the revenue side and expenditure side. And I will just give an example that automation, digitization are key initiatives which the government will pursue, which will bring greater efficiency to the way they collect funds and account for them, and also the way funds are spent. And one particular area in which automation, digitization, technology is critical is what is called the National Single Window. It's an e-government community that covers so many areas: trade facilitation and various ministries and so on and so forth. And that is an initiative which, by the time it grows to cover most of government activity, will take us on to another level in terms of efficiency and blocking of leakages. May I stop there, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
The equitable tax system. We talked of access to consumer credit. It is a critical driver of the economy. People producing need to be able to sell. And it is very, very limiting for you to have to pay for a product that will last you 10 years, that will last you 5 years, that will last you a long period of time. You now have to pay for it all cash on one day. So there's emphasis on providing consumer credit at affordable prices, so that will be not only a relief to the consumer, to the buyer, but it will help to stimulate growth of the economy. And I think on that is also answering the question of anti-corruption in a substantial way. Thank you.